Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and while we service all reels here, we have a opportunity today to do one of the Silver Series Daiwas that were made in Japan. This is the Daiwa 500C. It is the smallest of that series of lines. It goes to the very big 7000C, which is a big surf reel, but this is a ultralight for pond fishing. And well, it was sent in for a service, and we're going to do just that. We're going to start by removing the pieces and parts. As we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button to let you know when I'm posting the videos. And well, you can see which ones you want to watch. I cover all kinds of fishing reels. Most of these are about how to take the reels apart, service them, a little bit of history behind the reels, and how to get them out there fishing again. The primary goal of the channel is to teach you how to do it yourself. So by subscribing, you'll learn how to repair fishing reels, and well, maybe you want to take up a hobby, or maybe just keep yours well maintained. But again, if you subscribe, that's the best way to do that, and that notification button certainly helps. One of the things to note here is that's a very big drag for an ultra light reel. You can look at it, it's probably about the size of a quarter. Most of the time you're going to find much smaller drags in an ultralight pond reel. This one's got a big one. Okay, we're going to take the spool off. Now you're going to notice we have the carrier here, and you can't take that carrier off without removing the axle shaft. So next up here is to remove the handle, and with this you want to check always with the Daiwa reels for sure. Most of the time these have a through shaft, and even though that button's not working on the side there, not moving, most of the time it's hiding a screw under it. And if you go to try and pull off that handle without at least first checking to see if there's a screw there, well, you can break the handle or the main gear or both. Yep, as I suspected. I guess after a while of doing these you kind of remember some of them. This one has a screw holding the handle in. That's very true. Seems to be kind of a signature of Japanese reels. If you're working on Shimano's, you're going to find the same thing in the like the Quickfire line. You're going to find that the handle goes through the shaft. It's connected by a screw, and then you have a cap covering it. So you're thinking, well, traditionally these things, if they're spinning, it goes through. If they're not spinning, it doesn't. Well, you're going to be in trouble on that one. When I take my pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container in this case to store my parts, and that's always a good place to find them again. This has got a collapsible handle. If you turn the handle screw clockwise, it's going to back this off, and you're going to be able to close your handle. When you go to reinstall, if you turn it in a counterclockwise method, it's going to firm up and lock that handle into place. There are 3 screws. 2 of them match, 1 doesn't. Well, when the reel was sent in, this one was missing, and they asked me could I find a replacement screw. Well, I found a replacement screw. The head is a little bit different, but the hold is the same, so you can now hold the case completely. And we're going to take the other 2 out. And once we remove the case, that's going to enable us to remove the axle shaft and get to most of the components inside the reel. One more here. Okay, when you remove the 3 of those, the side plates should come off. Now before we go much further, just a note, this has got, I call it a bang bail. When you set your bail and it comes around, it trips by banging that outside piece on the handle there, sort of like that. That will trip it. There's not a lot going on inside there. You do not need to remove the bail assembly in the service of your reel, but one of the things that's always good there is it's plastic. Plastic tends to swell a little bit, so take some penetrating oil, flood the area, and just kind of work it back and forth. That will enable it to snap back a whole lot easier. All right, so let's get back to that side plate. We removed the 3. Now you can see the mechanics inside. We have a floating crosswind arm. We have a bushing, so we're going to take that bushing off first. Bushing's been on there for a while. I was just mentioning how plastic swells. That one got a little swollen. put that in my parts tray. Now we can be able to pull out, well, we can certainly pull off that arm. And there's probably, we can remove that pin as well, I'm not sure, but pull that arm off. Good place to tell you to take pictures. Sometimes that orientation is not symmetrical, so you want to know if it looks like the number 9 or the letter G, which side is proud. This one happens to be symmetrical. I noticed that as I was taking it off. And that pin may or may not come out. It seems to be part of the crosswind block. The crosswind block is held in with the screw down below. So let's go ahead and take that off. All it is to get up top there to that rotor, which we want to remove as well. So these reels do not need a whole lot of strength because the targeted fish are not that big. All right, once you do that, hold your crosswind block and pull out and up. There we go. And you're going to notice there's a couple of things here. There's a flat side with a little hook. Your bolt that we removed before the screw is going to kind of work its way through here. And you're going to notice on this one, it's like a C-clamp that that screw is going to pull this tight to hold that axle shaft. That goes into my parts tray. Here's your axle shaft. You want to take a paper towel and clean that off. That came out relatively easy once we cleared that little log jam there. And now we can come up top and we can remove that screw, or that nut rather. Looks to be a 10 millimeter. And if you have an issue there with grabbing it, go to your ratchet set. Go get a ratchet. Try first to take it off in a counterclockwise manner, which is standard. That's the way this one's coming off. If you meet a lot of resistance, try turning it in the other way. It may be reverse threaded. And that goes into my parts tray. Now we can remove the rotor assembly, and we'll see what's underneath here now. We have our anti-reverse dog mechanism, we have a collar, we have a pinion gear, and we have our click ratchet. The first thing you want to do is really get that click ratchet out of the way. Now we will remove the main gear. Just kind of walk it out. Just keep working it. Yep, there you go. And that's it. We do have a plastic bushing back there as well. That's all kind of dirty and crusted with old grease. So let's get that done. Going to take penetrating oil. Just going to sit it in a bowl there. That'll help loosen that up. Here is your override. And now we should be able to remove the collar and the associated pieces for that anti-reverse. Check this out. Make sure that you take pictures here. It's important in case you get distracted. There is a spring here for that dog override. It wraps around the screw and hooks over the neck here, and it's lodged behind this little metal carrier here. So if for some reason you run into trouble with that, you know how to reinstall. First thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to remove that anti-reverse dog because we want to get this pinion gear assembly out. To do that, I'm going to lift up on that spring on this side. Make sure that that tag end clears. You want to watch springs. They have a tendency to fly. And you certainly are not going to find a spring like this to replace it if indeed it does fly. So be careful with it. And one of the ways to do that, you generally keep this whole thing intact. I'm just going to try and lift this up. There you go. If you can lift it up, you can keep that piece on the screw, and you don't worry too much about that getting lost or even disoriented at that point. And it's a little trick. If you go to reinstall, that's a good way to reinstall it as well. All right, so I have it, and you can see I've got the hook of the spring on here on the neck. It's wrapped around that screw and comes out the side, and that's the one that gets tucked under. Very carefully, I'm going to place that into my tray. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to remove the collar, which is holding the pinion gear down. There's 2 screws for that. So when I do a service, I like to take all the pieces and parts off. I like to make sure they're all clean. I inspect them all, make sure that they're sound and that they're ready to go fishing again. I want to notice a couple of things on this. One of them is the orientation on this collar, because we know we need that raised side on the one, and that collar's facing the screw hole there. So always important to note that. Now we should be able to get the top and the collar and the pieces off with that. I'm going to leave them right off to the side on my workbench, as much as I don't like to do that from time to time. In this case, that'll work nicely because it's going to leave the orientation the way it should be. All right, let's pull up on that now. Now we have our bearing and we have our pinion gear, and it's our job to clean that up. Use the least abrasive method possible when cleaning, which means to me paper towels and a degreaser, as opposed to anything stronger unless needed. I just flooded that with penetrating oil. Now I'm going to use a brush to pull the dried grease out of the teeth on that pinion gear. And then you want to inspect it. You want to make sure that all of the teeth are uniform, that the channels are cleared, and that there's no chips or cracked or anything. Let's take that, put it right back in. And you can see that the bearing sits on the top of the shaved portion of this. I come over here and just clean the residual dirt out of the case before we reassemble. That involves, again, stay using the least aggressive of the cleaners. In this case, we get some chunk grease in there that hasn't been cleaned in quite some time. So I'm going to use a little pick to get into the tough spaces to clear that out. And then get that off my bench. Use some penetrating oil. And while I'm doing this, if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one, maybe you're thinking of working on one, maybe you're working on one, maybe you're stuck, maybe something didn't go the way you had planned, maybe you didn't take a picture along the way or something, and now you got some pieces that are kind of hard to fit. I just got one, I get them all the time, but I got a question that said, just put my rotor back on. The reel just isn't working as it did before. Without the rotor on, the reel works fine. Sounds like they're missing a shim washer in there. So those are the kinds of things I can try and help you with. I certainly can't see your reel, touch your reel, feel your reel, but I can certainly kind of draw on my experience to help you identify what the potential problems are. Okay, we took that off. Now we're going to put our assembly back in. That's been cleaned. You want to make sure that you get the main bearing seated all the way in. It has to be flush with the lip of the case here. And if your pinion gear slides low, don't worry terribly. This popped out because it was telling me it needs some grease. So let's go put the grease back on there. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. All right, try this again. Make sure that we're seated in there. We're flush on the case. Next up then is the little tie down. Remember what we said on the tie down. It goes, the raised portion goes to the corner. This is a balancing act, just trying to happen here. I'm going to leave the pinion gear low for a moment. That's the side that's going to hold your spring tag end. Put a little bit of grease onto the screw as a kind of a glue. And we can get that started. I generally do not like to leave my screws and pieces and parts I've taken off the reel on the bench. I just have a habit of bouncing things around, and when I bounce things around they tend to disturb other things, and then I need to go look for them. Alright, this comes down now. And this is our anti-reverse dog click ratchet kind of thing here. Find the flat spots on your piece and install that. Then we can come over very carefully with that anti-reverse dog. Again, there's a spring under here. It's coming in, it's wrapping around the shaft of the spring, coming out and hooking. You might be able to see the hook here onto the neck. So the best that we can, we're going to try and keep that in position as we try to reinstall this. This is a good time to use that tool that Dick, one of our viewers, sent in. It is going to do me a favor here. It's a screw starter. And holding that will enable me to kind of line it up, get it started, and bring it down. So if you can, if you have this set up, if you can leave that spring on there, you're going to find out that this is the best way to do that. Alright, we're tight there. You can see how the anti-reverse dog is going to bite into that ratchet. And now with a little bit of finger pressure, which is all you need, you're going to be able to hook that tag in end on the other side of that shield. Alright, so we're set now. If you want, you can test the override, make sure that it pulls it off of that click ratchet. Keep the pressure firm on the pinion gear from underneath, and then just bring your rotor on. To reinstall that, go to your parts tray, get your rotor nut. That rotor nut, again, came off in a counterclockwise manner, goes on in a clockwise manner, the traditional righty-tighty kind of a thing. I always encourage you to start this by hand. If you start it by hand, you reduce the risk of cross-tripping. I don't want to say you'll never cross-trip it, but you reduce it. And now you can spin it and make sure that it spins fine, which it's doing beautifully. That's the way it should go. Just make sure I got it tight. Yep, all tight there. And now we can come down to the inner side of the case here, work rebuild there. We've had that penetrating oil sitting in there. It's time to mop up the grease that kind of got dried around. If you need a little scrape, I use a flat-bladed screwdriver or a pick to kind of get some of the varnished stuff off. A little bit on the end of this. You can reapply the penetrating oil. And this is kind of what we did before with the other one. We're going to take our brush now. We're going to clear those channels. And I like to brush onto a paper towel. It gets the grease out of there. It doesn't transfer back onto the next stroke here. And what it does is it keeps it off my table so that when I'm working on the next reel, I don't transfer that to the reel that I'm working on then. All right, clean up both sides of that. Check the teeth this way on the profiles. Check them this way to make sure that they're not bent. And when you're satisfied that you've got a good main gear there, go ahead and put the grease on. We want to make sure we get grease onto the teeth and onto the shafts, particularly since those plastic bushings appear to be a little swollen. It doesn't hurt to do that. Going to install our main gear next. Give it a spin, make sure that it's doing what it should. And you'll notice how that eccentric there goes around in an uneven manner. That's what's going to drive the axle shaft up and down with that swing arm. Next up then is your axle shaft. Just a light coating of grease. And I just start this because we have the block that has to go in. And it does seem to be a little bit of something in this area here, so let's knock that out. Just dried grease, I guess. You want to clean everything as best you can. It really doesn't take that much more time to clean it. I get bothered by folks that just kind of open up a case, throw some grease on it, and call it serviced. To me, that's one, not taking advantage of a lot of your time, and possibly two, taking advantage of your customer. Just don't see it. I see the wheels come in. All right, we're going to bring this crossline block. We're going to set that into the channel it's going to ride on. We're going to move that block down, merge the two. Once you set that axle shaft into the carrier, go ahead and get your screw for that carrier and tighten that down. If you're trying to remember which screw it was, go to your pictures. All right, that's good. And take a little bit of grease now. We're going to grease two things. We're going to grease on top here and the side of it. That's where the carrier is going to ride, and this is going to ride against that bushing. So I'll put a little bit of grease on there. As we mentioned, this is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which side goes which. Center it over that stud. Get it on the stud first, bring it over your axle shaft, and then get it over your carrier. Now when that bushing goes back on, and our side plate goes back on, and we have a side plate screw that's next. So these are fun little reels. I enjoy them a lot. This is Andrew's reel. I'm sure he's going to have a fun time taking these out and taking them fishing. That's two. Now I'm noticing that the length of these screws are a little bit longer than the replacement that I found. The replacement does hold, but I guess you would like to have a little bit more. I think after the video's done, I'll come back and I'll try and see if I can find one with just a little bit longer throat. All right, that takes care of the bottom of the reel. We have our handle that goes next. We have our tie down for that handle. And then we can screw that in, tighten that handle up. Remember what I said about the adjustable handle. You can collapse it without turning the, taking this side apart. And we're almost ready to go up top, service the drags on the spool. Kind of curious what they are. I'm thinking that they may be Teflon drags, but I just don't recall on this smaller reel. What I do know is it's a pretty big drag. There's a lot of max drag for a small reel here. Okay, then we have the little cap that goes on next. Hand tighten that. That one, I heard a nice snap. Got a nice working reel there. Let's go ahead and take this apart, see what we have in here from a drag system. There's a 5-sided clip here, an open-ended clip. You want to get a wedge of some description, screwdriver, point, awl, something under there. And then let's see what's underneath here. Well, I kind of guessed right. So we have a single Teflon washer holding this in. That's a nice size drag washer there. Why you want to remove that is because you want to make sure that it's nice and clean under there. You don't service Teflon washers. By their nature, they are self-lubricating. They're plastic. but you do want to make sure that you get rid of the dirt and the grease. That's not unusual. You'll find pen reels. Some of the smaller pen reels only have that single Teflon washer up top. Again, you really don't need a lot of max drag on pond reels. And if you're taking this out in the ocean, well, buyer beware, I guess, or fisher beware. All right, we just reset that back on. Let's go ahead and put this back on the reel. This one's got a little bit of a broken screw. It's fine. It's just missing the tag that goes up top. As long as you can get the nut, which is held in there, screwing onto the reel, you'll be fine. Most of the Daiwas will just have a little piece of plastic cap or something there. If you really wanted to, I guess you could fill that in with something. You don't need to. All right, tighten it up. Make sure it's tight. In this case, I like to back these off so that they spin again, just to take the pressure off of the drag, and give it a try. Well, there you go. That's working fine. Remember what we said about the bump bail? It's going to come over here and hit that. We've oiled it, so it should just snap nice and closed and clean quickly like that. Wonderful. And then the last thing I like to do generally is just use a little rod and reel cleaner while I'm thanking our first responders and essential personnel for all they do to keep us safe, and to their efforts, their dedication to task, and their career choice. Thank you. To clean this up, just kind of use a kitchen scrubby. It's non-abrasive. Safe on Teflon pots and pans, I guess, whatever the advertising is. I use it on the reels. It's just enough abrasion if needed to get some of the fish scales or the like off of that. And that's it. That's our fishing reel. The Daiwa 500C Ultralight. It's the smallest in that Daiwa Silver series. And it's a fun reel, and I thank Andrew for sending that one in. I hope you've enjoyed that. To everybody who's watching, thank you for watching. Your loyalty is appreciated. If you're a first-time watcher or viewer, please subscribe to the channel. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.